Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Alan with another broadcast of the Morlog Morning Digest. Not in my car this morning, but we're doing it anyway. As always, you can help the channel grow by liking, subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications, but most importantly, I ask that you guys share the content. You'll find the link in the description below for BitChute in case YouTube doesn't want me around anymore, as well as a Bitcoin wallet and a PayPal link for donations if you guys are so inclined. Yesterday, we had a bunch of developing news. Apparently, General Flynn has been exonerated. However, the DOJ is still not out of the woods yet because it all depends on whether or not the judge is going to force the DOJ to actually prosecute General Flynn. And if that happens, we're going to see a bunch of stuff end up coming out because of discovery and all that nonsense. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's still a possibility, and honestly one that I would like to see. If you guys want, I can do an entire video about this. Leave comments asking for it because I've tried 5 times today, and the video is like 40 minutes long. There's a lot of information there. But that right there is why we are seeing all of this information be slowly dripped out. Now, I know for a long time people have been expecting there to be a declassification happening all at once. You have to realize, guys, I've been looking at all of this stuff for 5+ years at this point, and there's so much information that I still don't know, and I know a lot. So imagine what the United States public would think if all of this information came out at once. A, they wouldn't have the attention span to absorb it, and they would lose interest in it. And B, this time period right now is honestly the best time period to start dripping information, in my opinion, and that's because people are at home, they aren't out working, it's not a normal situation, right? And I don't think there's any coincidence as to the giant push with the declass happening during this whole crisis that's going on. It's fake, but they're calling it a crisis. Now, I want to address a comment that was made in my video yesterday before getting into the topic at hand. I was explicitly called a fucktard for my video yesterday, and I can't blame you, man. You're mad. Your paycheck's gone. You didn't prepare properly, obviously, because you're telling me you ran out of food. I've been saying for the last 10 years you should have at least a year worth of food on you at all times. And then you're asking me what the alternative is to protesting, which goes to show me you probably didn't watch my video because I told you what to do. You stand on your own 2 feet, you go out there and you do what needs to be done, regardless of what the government is telling you is acceptable at the moment right now. And if you can't do that, you have nobody but to blame but yourself, dude. I'm the messenger, I get it. You're going to be mad at me, but I'm speaking an apparent truth at this point. And that brings me into my next topic right now. We are living through history right now. And there's something funny about history. Recorded history is never the actual set of events that took place. People have an inherent nature, right, to bias their recording of history in one direction or another based on their own personal biases, right? And you know what? I'm guilty of that myself. I'll admit it, right? A lot of the videos I make are skewed heavily one way or the other based on my bias. But there's a difference, right? I let you guys know that it's my opinion. I'm not here to give you guys a history lesson, even though a lot of the stuff I talk about pertains to history. I'm more focused on the bigger philosophical issues around all of it. But I have a suggestion for all of you right now with the times that we are living in. I suggest that you grab a journal and start recording your thoughts and feelings as well as your account on the series of events that we're going through right now. Because I'm telling you, dude, in 100+ years, people are going to be reading in their history books about this time period, and they may not be reading what actually happened. And there's a way for us to avoid that. The internet makes it a lot easier, to be honest with you, because of everything that's being put up there, right? That's all there forever. You're never getting rid of that data. So people in the future are going to have an easier time seeing and reading between the lines of their history books. But honestly, it's our responsibility to make sure that they're able to, because ultimately we are the ones that are going to be held accountable for the direction our society takes from this point forward, right? I want to point out a few glaring plot holes in history to wrap this video up, okay? And there's a few of them. And it all ties back into what's going on today, because even what we're being told now doesn't make sense based on science, right? So what makes you think how history records this is going to be truthful in the least? It's not. And I'm going to point to World War II for an example here. We've all been taught that we developed nuclear bombs during the Manhattan Project and dropped them on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, there's one giant plot hole in that, and that is the half-life of the radiation that was supposed to be there. I want you guys to think with an open mind for a second. Look back to the fires in Chicago, San Francisco, the fires that took out entire cities in the United States over and over and over again. Why did that happen? Well, the source of the fires is probably nefarious in my opinion, because it just so happens to occur in giant cities that tie into the mud floods over and over again. But that's besides the point. The reason those cities burned to the ground so easily is because they were timber framed, just like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What were we famous for doing all the way through World War II? We firebombed the ever-living hell out of Japan before dropping those two bombs on those two cities. And because they were all timber-framed cities and villages and towns, they burnt to the ground very, very easily. Again, think logically. If we were to drop firebombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it's funny because if you if you look at the records of people that were actually there during these events, what they describe doesn't match what a nuclear weapon would have done. And that's why I'm saying it's so important for you as a citizen to record what is going on in your own words based on what you have seen. Because, like I said, there's a plot hole with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The half-life of radiation. How is there a living thing at all inside of those cities right now? How did the plant life come back? How did the animal life come back? According to science, radiation would make that impossible, yet people lived in those cities throughout the entire timeline after those bombs dropped. Now, there's another plot hole in history that points to the same exact thing, and it seems as though people overlook it because they're lulled into a sense of security that their history books have taught them the correct history. Chernobyl is the same exact deal. Not a whole lot of people realize this, but there's a Chernobyl exclusionary zone, right? And it takes up a vast amount of area around the epicenter of where that disaster happened. But there's people that never left Chernobyl. They stayed there and lived there generation after generation, right? And what's interesting is if you go and do blood work on these people, etc., 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 everything points to the fact that they weren't exposed to high levels of radiation. We have plant life, right, taking back that entire area. On top of that, right, animal life is thriving like never before there. And it's probably one of the most untouched places on Earth at this point for us to observe how nature can come back from just about anything. But the simple fact of the matter is, if radiation and the half-life of radiation existed or worked like they tell us that it does, there shouldn't be a living thing within fucking 100 square miles of Chernobyl. Period. The end. Yet, as I've said, there's families that never left that area at all, my friends. Never. Okay? And there's these plot holes in history that happen over and over and over and over again. But everybody seems to turn a blind eye to them because A, they're either not interested enough to care, or B, they're fooled into a false sense of security by thinking they know what's going on because they've heard it from a person of authority. Well, as I've said before, anybody recording history is going to skew it to their bias one way or another. So I challenge you, and I implore you to do this. Even though your journal is going to be skewed one way or another, right? If enough of us record what is going on through our own eyes, and there's enough of that information later on in history, it's going to benefit those that come after us, because they're going to put the pieces to the puzzle together. And it's our responsibility to do so, as I've said. I'd like to thank you guys for listening to me. I appreciate it immensely. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have an outlet, right? And it's something that I need more now than ever. I'm there with you guys. I'm not mad at you for making that comment, right? I understand where you're coming from, but you have to open up your eyes and realize, man, I'm just the messenger, dude. I'm going to leave it there. God bless all of you, and have a wonderful day.